again. This is talking to strangers about photos or talking about photos with strangers. I have no idea when we're talking. This is a member of the Leica Club. This is Dorian Coleman. Many of you know him.
Yes. It is
Dorian
an honor.
Coleman on YouTube.
Yeah.
Go ahead and follow him. This is the guy I'm always shouting out. So our boy Lee DeLeon was not able to make it today. He is the third part of the Holy Trinity of the Leica Club. And he's known as Leica Lee. But Dorian, good to see you again, finally.
You as well, man. Absolutely. It's good to be here.
I know we talk a lot and we see each other through IG and other ways and things like that, but it's nice to at least have an in time conversation. So what's up, man?
Man, I am feeling good. I was able to get a little bit of recording done today.
Nice.
Even though, man, Cleveland, it's getting lethal with this cold, dude.
Yeah.
People don't understand, man.
It's still hot here, man. Like I had to shoot today, sweating the whole time. And so it's, me and the dude I was photographing, he's wearing a sweater in 89-degree humid weather. And we were talking about how we would love to be somewhere up north. And so count your blessings, man, because it would be nice. It would be really nice.
Yeah, dude. I mean, just give it another month, though, man, because Cleveland, like kind of how it works, it'll be 40 at 2 p.m., then it'll be 75 at 4 p.m., and then it'll be back down to 48 right before sundown. So
yeah,
that's how it is.
Yeah. All right, man. So I'm gonna jump right into one thing real quick, and then you have some questions and stuff, and I'm gonna let you hit them up since you've kind of got a ride for it. But first thing I'm gonna jump into is, so you've had in your hands the is it 16 to 80 from Fujifilm?
Yeah, I've been using that thing for the past almost 3 weeks now. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your impressions on it, man? Have you been using it for street, or mostly for just walk around, using it for video and photo, or?
Oh man, yeah. So it's been interesting. So, as you know, my first time ever making a video was the first video for my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That was all done with a GoPro.
Yeah.
So videography is very new to me. And when it comes to the 16 to 80, man, I know the thing was pretty heavily scrutinized when it first got announced.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying it. I'm definitely planning on going into like a decent amount of detail once I make a video on it. But it really kind of makes me question, like, you take most modern day lenses now and you pretty much can't find a problem. So I wonder why people were so against it when it first got announced.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. No, I feel it. Yeah, I feel like that's one thing that I'm going to drop myself. Boom, there we go. I feel like that is one thing that, and we've talked about it again. For those of y'all that don't know, me and Dorian we communicate a lot, and we've talked about it. And I was even thinking about it today while I was editing these photos, because I shot a lot of them with the 10 to 24 Fujifilm. Not a very loved lens or anything like that, but we talked about a lot that there's a certain point to where does it seem like we're just complaining just to complain about what a lens can and can't do. And is f4, apparently f4 is not, no matter what, f4 will never be a good lens.
To see, and that's the part that bothers me the most, man, because when you think about the primary utility for something like a 1.4, 1.2, even 1.8, it's light gathering. I mean, yes, the bokeh aspect of it is very nice, but I threw it in the I think the end of my last video. Steve McCurry, who is active on Instagram, it's actually him. He will read your DMs. He probably won't respond, but he'll like your comments.
Yeah,
and he'll even respond back sometimes.
Yeah,
and if you go through all of his portraits, people will ask, "Hey, Steve,
what'd you shoot this at?
What aperture?" Dude, you will never see anything more open than f4.
Yep. Yeah.
So if this is arguably, I mean, I said this last time, my estimation, the most decorated photographer who's ever lived, and he's using f4, who are you to call anything that isn't more open than 1.8 a bad lens? I don't get it, man.
And that's the thing is, it's so weird to me how there's a disconnect from, actual professionals that everyone loves. And if you were to bring up Steve McCurry, if you were to bring up, you want to talk about HCB, you want to talk about Gordon Parks, you want to talk about, I mean, just all these people, even, like the GOATs of today that, like we've talked about, like Stock Easy or like Photo Dre, like they're not shooting, like if they have a lens that goes down to 1.8, it doesn't, honestly, a lot of the time, I've even seen Stock Easy talk about it. He stopped down for street. He lives at like f8, to f11. He's living there, but
You
so
have
many
to.
people, you have to, but he has a 2.8 lens, a 1.4 lens, but everyone always, all the time, I always see it is, oh, I need a good lens for low light. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, man, like, well, are you shooting in low light or not? And we've had this conversation, me and you and Lee, over and over and over again.
Hmm.
It's like there's a disconnect between, not a disconnect, but when people start off in street and documentary, you can
Hmm.
really tell the difference between them and people that started off as creatives in the Sony era versus portrait photographers. And like like it's like they don't collide. But for some reason, portrait photographers and things like that, that's what people see as, oh, I want to be that. But every
Hmm.
person that you love and you idolize, they're stopped down at F4. They're the documentarians. They're the, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I think a lot of that, which we've also touched on, is the marketing aspect. I
Yeah.
mean, because when you're a brand new wide-eyed photographer, I mean, you want what'll create the looks that you're seeing. So when you
Yeah.
look at a lot of these um, important portrait artists, like Lindbergh, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that man definitely lived in the wide open space of his lenses.
Yeah.
But when you see that and you see that sort of dreamlike effect, I mean, you're gonna want to have
You
it,
want it.
man. So to a degree that I understand that, but then as you move through things even further, you understand, if I'm going to be making a portrait for someone in a engagement setting, wedding setting, whatever it may be, and they're going to look at this, you want them to remember it. Context of where they are is going to be important because
Yes.
if you're destroying the background for every single set of photos,
Exactly. Yeah.
they might as well have been anywhere. So screw the honeymoon, screw the
Exactly. Right.
pretty steps, the statue behind it. You could have put
Yeah.
them anywhere.
Yeah.
So again, they have the utilities, but I really think so much of this is just marketing, man. I mean, like for not to you guys know I love Fuji and not to shoot myself in the foot with this, but even with the new 1.4 lenses coming out, I
Yeah.
mean, they're going to be amazing for resolving the resolution for the
Exactly.
X-H2.
Yeah.
But dude, I don't got no use for 1.4 in the street
Yeah.
and that extra weight. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna use them, but for that use, it's not mandatory. And I just
Yeah.
hope that people kind of keep things like that in mind.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing is, when you go and we look at, because right now street photography, whether it's
Mhm.
film, whether it's digital, I mean, there has been a surge. There has been a surge, and
Oh yeah.
like big over the past, especially with people just realizing that, oh, especially over the pandemic, I can just go outside of my neighborhood and take photos of things around me. But there's different
Mhm.
ways to look at them. That's great. I love photography. I believe photography should be inclusive, not exclusive. And
Of
so
course.
with that though, we looked at it to where someone reviewed the 18 1.4, and I sent you this, and it's and this blog, and I'm not going to name this blog, but it is a very people. Someone left in a comment this week about, oh, I'm going to wait for this certain blog's review on it. They shot that 18 1.4 at 1.4 in the middle of the day with like 1/20th, that 1/20,000th of a, I mean, it ridiculous, the lowest ISO. And again, it goes back to there's a disconnect between what people who shoot. To me, I guess do you consider Gordon Parks, even though he had, or Henri Cartier-Bresson, do you consider them, even though they had access to fast primes, do you consider them less professional because they didn't shoot wide open with a lens? That's the thing. Yeah, your lens is capable to shoot at 1.4, at 1.8 at f2, but
Mhm.
people didn't do that. Does that mean they don't
Mhm.
know what they're doing? Does that mean they're unprofessional? They couldn't tame it? You know?
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point. It might have been Ted Forbes, who I love, the art of photography on YouTube. He might
Yes.
have been the person to say this. He regularly will take in the books of his viewers, subscribers, lesser known artists in his neighborhood, whatever, et cetera, and he'll look through and he'll give honest critiques and recommendations on these people's books. And I can't remember when it was, but he said that you sort of have to be careful for who you're looking up to and studying when it comes to advancing your art. Because make no mistake, there are modern photographers right now who are fantastic. I mean, we just mentioned Andre Wagner and Stock
Yeah.
Easy, who I don't know if Stock doesn't have like 350K on YouTube
It's
right
ridiculous, man.
now. Stock Easy is skilled beyond
He created the format. Exactly.
He really did.
Mhm.
So of course there's going to be people during your time who are going to be fantastic. But when it comes to ever wanting to embody some sort of timeless element, I mean, there are people right now who are timeless. Like they're no longer on earth anymore, and we still hear their names and we see their books.
Yeah.
So you have to be sort of cognizant of the influences that you're taking in, because we have a lot of people whose styles have come and go.
Yeah.
I know Lee, he
Yeah.
kind of made the joke in our last video with the like the neon, you know,
Oh, yeah,
window. Yeah, that was here for like 9 months and it was gone. But then, you know, you see the photo that HCB took with the person hopping over the puddle or into the puddle.
Oh,
you
yeah.
see
Yeah.
Wintergrand photos. You see stuff from parks, like you said. So when you take that into account, you know, don't be afraid to admire who's here right now.
Yeah.
But when it comes to wanting to sort of leave that stamp, sometimes you got to look back in the past, man.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, man. So that's it, man. I wanted to ask that question whenever we got off the bat, just because, like I said, I was thinking about it. It was weighing on me. Again, I was shooting with that 10-24, and I told you that has me thinking if, you know, I need the 18-1.4, considering that's going to mostly be shot around 5.6 to 11. But anyway, man, you had some topics, you had some things you wanted to discuss.
I do.
I'm all for it, man. So let's get into them.
Yeah. So I have a couple main ones, but I want to start with this one first. So I remember, because I've been watching your videos for a while, man. It seems like a lot of our subs knew each of us before we knew each other, which is kind of funny. And I recall that you said both in those videos and even in the last pod that you were mainly just on YouTube just to talk to people, kind of just see what photographers are up to. But very quickly, man, you have become a trusted voice that people look to. I mean, screw the subscriber number. You've been growing fast, man.
Yeah.
Have things changed for you at all? Because I know you do. You kind of got a hard shell, but you really care about what these people do. You care about their buying decisions and if they're getting the most out of photography. Yeah. So have things changed for you at all?
I don't think anything's changed from the standpoint of the way I'm discussing things. I actually keep probably one that should change is I should stop responding to people in the comments and stuff, and also responding in my DMs, because I get a whole bunch of, like, you know, if it's not in the comments, it's some like to where YouTube has to remove them. I don't even get to see them. I just see the notification of my email, or on Instagram, like the slander shit that's being said. No, man, I don't trust companies at all. Like, you know, because we talk about it, it's all about marketing. It doesn't matter if you're Leica, you're Sony, you're Canon, you know, and Fujifilm has me personally, you know, Fujifilm falls into it, and they're at a crossroad right now what they're going to have to do, because I haven't been happy with what they've been doing recently. I don't trust companies because they look at, okay, what will the market give me for this object, which is fine. But at the same time, they're not giving us something that basically that is worth it. We talk about the A7 IV. We talked about it personally. How if you go and everyone, if all 7 people who watch this, if you look up the specs to the EOS R that was released that everyone hated and it panned, and you take into account the autofocus updates, it is an A7 IV, except it doesn't have, you know, maybe a couple things with recording. It has one SD card slot, and I couldn't remember what else the rest was. But whenever it comes to the frames per second shooting from a photography standpoint, and even some stuff with the videography, because it just has a crop, you could basically buy the EOS R for $1,300 or $1,200 used right now. It's a better deal than the A7 IV.
On paper, they're pretty much the same.
On paper, they're pretty much the same. And so it just sucks because even with Fujifilm, the 18-1.4 is great. I love 28 millimeter focal length. That is not $1,000 lens. That is a $799 lens at most. And that's the issue I have, is it's better than the 18-2, and it shut me up about it whenever I got to use it in certain situations. But it is not, you know, 4 times the price of a used 18f2. And the same thing, a lot of people are going to be disappointed, because I think that you know, the 35F 33 1.4 is a good lens. I think it's overpriced as well. I think the 35 1.4 is overpriced and the 33 1.4 is overpriced. I don't think that it's $300 better than a brand new 35 1.4. And so it's just things like that with Canon, with Sony, even with Nikon, you know, you tell us that, oh, this is what professionals use, whenever it's not. A professional is a person, someone who cares about the art or is passionate about the subject they're a photographer, they're taking photos of. That does a lot more than you know what your marketing says. But unfortunately, marketing drives the world, and so my mind still is the same. I want people to not get in debt, to buy shit they're not going to hate. And if you're not someone who gets paid to shoot photography all the time, be aware of what you're using. And if you don't want to have a career in the arts and you just do it for fun and you're a hobbyist, not every hobby has to fucking cost you $20,000 over the course of your life. And, you know, unfortunately, that's the world we live in right now. So I don't know if things have changed. They need to change, because I do still go back and forth with people and it gets tiring.
Yeah. Well, and I think you only do that because you care about what you're saying. If you were indifferent and couldn't care any less about what people did or how they spent their money, not from like a pocket watching standpoint, but for just a wanting the best for the artist standpoint, because we talk about this all the time. There are so many different sort of things that they say about how artists should operate that have kept us broke for thousands of years.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're counting artists who actually made enough to have any sort of wealth, I don't even think I need all my fingers to count them.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you only respond that way because you actually do have an interest in what you're talking about. And though I've always had respect for you from the first time I saw one of your videos, where I was like, man, this guy is something, is with that Northrop response. And it wasn't because I knew for a fact that you weren't trying to start any drama.
Yeah.
But you had somebody who is large in the photography space who was saying things that you felt were not true, that a lot of them were not true at all. And the fact that you came out could have deleted your channel, if you get what I'm saying, right off the bat. And you just came out and did it anyway. I was like, yeah, this guy, like, people who go at you, I don't think they really understand. You're really looking out for people. So I definitely respect that a lot.
Yeah, I think what goes in the Tony Northrup thing, along with everything else that I do in the comments, is I just don't like people who talk about shit they don't know, or people who give opinions on stuff they've never used or nothing about. I shut my mouth and don't mention certain things. People are always like, oh, what do you think about Panasonic? Bro, I will never mention Panasonic because I don't shoot with Panasonic. I will never hate on the A6 II or Z6 II or the Z7 II because I haven't personally shot with those. And in the same vein, so many people take shots on stuff they've used for a week or 2 weeks. We've talked about this with whenever Fujifilm sends us gear. I don't want to put my name on something that I didn't really use for that long. I can't give a full amount. And so when Tony came and said all that stuff, and I'm like, okay, this dude literally, and I started looking up what was online. The dude literally saw a B&H banner and he didn't watch the event, and they don't send him gear because he doesn't know shit and he's not a photographer. And because of that, he made shit up. And I was pissed because, like, bro, like, people watch you and they make financial decisions based on you. And for some people, Fujifilm was more than enough, because it is more than enough. And, you know, people were so mad at me for saying that I see myself as a better photographer because I use APS-C than Tony. And that is true. I mean, Tony North, if you ever see this, I do think I'm a better photographer than you, because you can't get apparently the same results that I can get out of APS-C, which is pathetic on your end. And so that's the thing, is like, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I just don't like when people say shit about stuff they don't know. Like, even whenever I say something and I'm corrected in the comments, I'm like, dang, my bad, I misunderstood that, or, you know what, I should have prefaced that, and but then we call it cool. I think I've had that happen maybe 2 times, and it's just because I'm very careful about the shit that I say, because, you know, last thing I want is in 6 months someone to come back and say, oh, you said this and it was wrong, and we'd be like, damn, dude, because I can't deal with that, man, because I can't deal with that. So
I totally agree with you, man. And just that whole aspect of being able to use something for enough time to actually be able to talk about it, I relate to that really heavily. I definitely go on shooting binges. I will shoot, probably my average photo walk is usually like honestly 5 to 6 hours, and I try to do them every single day,
Damn.
at least every day that I don't work. And on days where I do work, I'll do it a few hours before I open or a few hours before I close. And Fuji did send me the 18 1.4 like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I was working on stuff with it, but work got crazy at the time. And I had a couple of videos made, but I also understood that if I wanted to actually give my full deep dive on it, I would have needed to spend more time with it. So it had to sit in the vault. And I definitely kind of, on the whole respect thing, feel that way about what you were saying as well, because at the end of the day, you know, we're doing this because we love it, because we enjoy it. Yeah. But there's at least one person out there who's bought something because you or I talked about it. And that's a heavy responsibility, you know. And my biggest responsibility as far as street photography goes is to the art itself, and just kind of making the world some sort of better place through it. But if we're going to be on YouTube, we got to steer people in the right direction. Yeah. So that's all I'm saying, man. I don't have any words for Tony specifically, but if anything ever happens, I'm standing by my boy D. So
well, there's a photography channel on YouTube. It's called Ryan Troy, RYINTORY. I'm shouting him out because he shoots Nikon, and we actually had this conversation today. Was he knows that he can make videos about the Z9 and get clicks, and he knows he can make like all these photo shoot videos with the Z6 II and the Z7 II, and he knows he can get clicks, and he knows that he can reach out to Nikon and probably get something. He knows this. He actually started around the same time as me and has about the same number of followers, probably a little bit more than me. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants to teach people how to grow their business. And it's a fine line for him, because he wants to see people flourish within their wealth versus just get clicks. And he's like, you know, I don't want to lose my, he's battling between like, you know, I want to keep people entertained, but man, this isn't where I'm at. And so he's having to decide for himself. And I think he's going with a decision basically to choose to bet on himself, which is good, but
it's good for him.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes into it like, you know, and I've talked about this with you before, especially if you didn't release that 18 1.4 video, like how much I appreciated that, because it's not even that it's not even the fact that, like, you know, because people have said, I've seen on your videos, on my videos, hey, I watched your video and I bought this lens, bought this body, can't wait. But it's the fact that, you know, like you have to have like a certain kind of, I guess, like character or integrity to say like, I don't want me to be associated with something that may not be 100% truthful, or may not be something that I put 100% of my time into and give someone the impression that I know more or that I've experienced more than I don't. And that's the thing, is I think that's what, because that goes beyond, you know, like YouTube and this shit. That goes to like your day to day, and then it goes to basically like, you know, you with street photography, like you the craft, like you can be one of these guys who, you know, make shit up, or who is totally inappropriate about stuff, or it's on this space, and then you're somewhere else, like Jason Lanier, who, if you're the guy who said that Jason Lanier is super cool on my channel, go fuck yourself, because he's a creep too. But yeah, it's just that kind of thing. Like, I appreciate that about you, and I really feel like people need to be aware of that. Like, if you're watching YouTube, if you're not a YouTuber, be aware. If you don't make YouTube videos yourself, be aware of 3 things. Number one, if you're not willing to make a video about it, your opinion doesn't really affect me in this space. Yeah, get that nap, bro.
Keep going. Yeah.
Number one, if you don't make a video about it yourself, if you're not brave enough to, because we had to do this our first time too, I really don't care about your opinion, because you got to put your face behind it. You know, everyone's entitled to one, but it doesn't mean that it's valued. Number 2 is that, you know, people are on YouTube, are even us. We are trying to get to a point to where this could be a nice little bit of chunk of income. Once you get to the point where you're like, dang, you know, like I can actually get followers and subscribers and get stuff out of here, that becomes an incentive. And it is something that, you know, you notice. And so, you know, it'd be a lie to say, oh, I do, you know, I never even noticed that. Yes, you do, because they offer you money. Not a lot. It's not a lot, but I mean, you can even, but you
in the beginning it's not. Yeah.
In the beginning, it's not, but you can get some. And the last thing, you know, about it is like, people need to understand, you, just like you said, what the guy from Art of Photography said it, you really have to watch who you follow, because it's not even just so much like their craft and like how they do things, but it's also, there are some people who are specifically out here to just give you a review or give you an overlook of something because it benefits them and them only. And it doesn't benefit you, and more specifically, it doesn't benefit you financially. And I think that's that worries me the most, is that we're in such a I need it now generation, and this will make me better generation, when majority of people could be using flagships from about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and they'd be fine. But they're in debt putting shit on credit cards, and they can't afford these cameras and lenses, dude. And that's what sucks, is I see so many people selling their lenses because they need money, or selling it because I never used it. And it's like I know they bought it brand new for $1,400 and they're selling it for $1,000. And it kind of sucks. I've been there. So it's not fun. But anyway, that's my tangent.
Definitely, man. And if I can go again, dude, I'm about to kill this. Can I swear? I can swear on your channel?
Yes, you can. You can swear.
I'm about to kill this motherfucker, dude. I made the mistake. I bought some bananas, dude, and I didn't eat them. Man, now I got 35 gnats. Well, at least it feels like 35. But this one, he might get deleted on camera. But hold up. Yeah. But okay. I do have a second question.
Yeah.
And this, man, I like to think too deeply about everything I come across. And we've already had some interesting topics as it is. Now, I know you, just from what we've talked about and your work, that you focus very heavily on not just documentary, but you do a lot of family shoots, portraits, weddings when, wedding season is in action, etc. And I do street photography, some quote documentary stuff, but I like to shoot without an agency or any sort of real obligation to another entity in mind, right? Now, I think I told you about this, but I've been spending a lot of time at Cleveland's Art Museum. Yeah. And it's, for anybody who doesn't know, I believe it's ranked 2nd or 3rd in the United States. We got a good museum here. And we have an exhibition right now that's focusing on 20th century street photography. Now, not the names that we've all heard, though few of them are featured, but it's primarily Cleveland photographers who found themselves in New York, Chicago, et cetera. Okay. And it's sort of talking about how street photography / documentary was like a transition from the realism in a painterly sense to urban realism in a photography sense. And in that exhibition, I saw something that I haven't really been able to get out of my mind. I think I told you about this, but I don't think we ever really talked about it. Okay, yeah. There was a photo by James Van Der Zee, and I'll send it to you so that you can put it right here as I'm talking about it. But he was commissioned to photograph Marcus Garvey and a couple of his cohorts, I suppose. And with that, there was a caption to the photo that has kind of had me on my, oh man, I don't want to swear. It's had me going for a while. So I'm going to read it.
You can say it.
Yeah.
You're safe here.
So this is what was next to the photograph. The photographs by Harlem's preeminent portrait photographer, James Van Der Zee, illustrate the contrast between street photographers who capture people as they are and portraitists who portray people as they would like to be remembered. Yeah. So that hit me because it established this clear dichotomy with the responsibility of a portrait photographer and the responsibility of a street photographer. And just gut reaction, what are your thoughts on that message right there?
So I really like that. Street, so I cut my teeth in street, got into documentaries with that, like whether event work or just family and everything. And even that, street photography is so much different even from documentary photography. And I've said it many a time, like street photography has its own, it is its own thing. Just because of it, just like with sports, just like with weddings, you have one opportunity to catch this, and it is so damn hard. And so when you catch it, it literally is, just like you said, the world as it is. And there is such an important thing about that, because documentary photography, even with weddings, even you were putting on the face of what, not you specifically as the artist, but you're right. But that's perfectly correct. How someone wants to be seen, like how they want to be viewed. Because when you're commissioned to take documentary photos, to take promotional photos, to take portraits, you are doing everything you can to control the environment. And that's probably the best thing to do. You're doing everything you can to control your environment so you can control your end product, so you can shed light on the situation, how it needs to be shed according to the way that you've been commissioned, whether that's a positive light, a negative light, whether it's a historic light, whatever. When you're in street, you have no control over what comes, and you have no control over what is in your camera. The only are just of what comes to you that day. The only thing that you have control over is the quickness of you and your reflexes to spot a situation or a composition. That is literally it. And again, street photography, the difficulty in that is you don't choose your composition at times. You don't choose your layers. You don't choose what colors you have. You don't even choose the dynamics of an image. And again, even in documentary photography, if I'm shooting bulls, these bull riders like that, these black bullmen, and I don't like the background of an image, and someone's riding a bull, I just switch my where I'm standing, and now the next time they let a bull out, I can get the exact, even though it's a different person, it's a once in a lifetime ride. They will never be able to replicate that ride exactly. I can still control some of the things in my environment. With street, you cannot. Street photography is the most authentic form of photography because, and man, I feel like we just talked about this too. You look at the painting behind you with Nighthawks. The thing with that, that image is it's a beautiful image. Everyone knows that. If they don't know the name, they see it and they know exactly. They know exactly. They may not know who painted it, but they know they've seen it somewhere. Even with that painting was created to give the essence of what man and what life and what everything is in the time that is specific to the artist. With street photography, you don't get to choose what life is, what the attitude is. You don't get to choose the people in it. It is what it is. And you could probably speak this more than anyone. You can go to a suburb, you can go to an inner city area, you can go to a rural area. You don't choose the subjects you have or the situations. It comes to you. And it's the most difficult thing because day by day, you can walk through the same areas of Cleveland every day, and you will not get the same shots. You will not get the same compositions. You will not get the same colors, nothing. And so to me, that right there with that whole statement about street being the way it is, portrait being the way we want things to be, is the perfect example of all throughout the history of man, with every painting, whether it's cave, whatever, the story has been told, but it's been told in a light that we wish it to be. And street photography is the only medium of any art to where you capture it specifically the way that it is. And you can't make it up. You can't embellish it. You can't lie about it. It is what it is. And so it is, street photography is another level. I give respect all the time to sports, wildlife, and wedding photographers all the time on my channel because they have specific needs. But for street photographers, you can have the most basic gear and or the most high-tech gear, and it doesn't matter what you have. Your job is still the hardest to capture something that is provocative, something that is entertaining, and also tells a story that's isolated enough. That's the thing is, I can take a wide angle shot of everything happening. It may not tell a story. It's finding what's isolated in that big ass wild area that tells a story. And so streets, that just solidifies to me how important and how amazing street is.
Absolutely, man. That was beautifully put. And, you touched on a lot of points there, but just the fact that street, I mean, you're pretty much tasked with the responsibility of showing what's going on during your time, whether you like it or not. That's why I have so much respect, not only for the craft, but for anybody who even wants to try it.
Exactly.
Like, dude, it's difficult. I mean, a lot of us are photographers. I would wager that 80% of photographers are probably introverted and shy. So you got to go against everything that your body is telling you not to do. Go do it anyway with expensive camera gear. Take photos that are probably all going to suck, honestly, in the beginning. Because just like I said, I go for usually 3 to 5 hours at a time. Dude, I'm lucky if I got like 6 shots I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Like, so much of it is not in your control. And that's why you have to really have a grip on your fundamentals. But I like how you touched on that dichotomy that that passage had, but I think that there's even another way that works in conjunction with yours where it can be taken. Because you think about it, man, and I'm sure you've seen this because you photographed, I'm sure, countless families. I've done, I think, 4 paid shoots in my life. I just hate doing paid shoots, man. I don't, nothing really brings me any satisfaction from it. Now, that's not to say that I will not do some sort of, event or something. I'm your boy. Yeah. But when it comes to like, hey, do portraits around music video, it's like, no, I ain't taking commissions.
Yeah.
The way that I thought about it was, consider this, D, because I'm sure you've heard this. Have you ever been taking photos of a family, some sort of business event, etc., and you do the, okay, stand here, take the picture, put your hand in this pocket, and then they're cool. But then you get some where they're fully candid. They don't even know that you're taking the picture.
Yeah.
And then they love them.
Yep.
See, that touches on something right there. I was going to talk about this in the video, but I'll talk about it right here. When they establish that delineation for portraitists to capture people as they wish to be remembered and the street as it is, dude, I don't think that people even know how they want to be remembered until a photographer shows them.
I don't.
Because when I think about these times I've gone out on the street, I've talked to people prior to asking for a portrait, and they have every single reason why I should find them ugly. Every single reason why they're not interesting. Yeah. Every single reason why I shouldn't want to be talking to them. And then I'll show you, hey, I hope you don't find this weird, but I actually already took this picture of you. What do you think? And they're always overjoyed to see it.
Yeah, they want the photo.
Exactly. People are, all of us, because man, all of us on earth are deeply insecure. Like, let's just keep it a buck, okay?
Yeah.
We're so blind to things that make us special that other people might appreciate that sometimes we need to be turned into an art piece to appreciate them. And that's kind of what street photography is. That's what senior portraits are. That's what documentary shoots with the Bullman are. That's what every shoot you've ever done is. So even though I kind of get what they were trying to say with that passage, when you consider the fact that when you go out and you photograph somebody who could be in a situation where they might not have all their family members, they might be in a new town, etc. Dude, when I think about this year alone, I think I've taken maybe 5 pictures of myself. And that's myself and my friends taking pictures of me. My family, we never take pictures. If you go between ages 14 and like 23 of me, you'll find almost no pictures. Like, we were just never really a picture family. So when you think about it, you could be, I've thought about this, man. I could have photographed somebody who isn't here anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I think about the greater responsibility that we have to have as photographers, I'm not saying everybody has to shoot the same way, but I think we have to consider like the truly important thing that we can do. Like, you can really show somebody something about themselves that they did not even know was worthy of being appreciated.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, I see what they were trying to do. I don't think that meant it that hard.
Yeah, not that deep.
Line. Yeah. But I overthink everything. May knows about me now. But when I saw that, I was just like, wow. I was floored. I kind of felt like when Prince Zuko lost his bending because like his source was anger. I had to find out a new source of photography because it kind of made me reconsider everything. No, but I just wanted your opinion on that, man. I'm glad you have such high praise for street because it is not easy.
Well, and that's the thing is I took it from a sample. That's the first time you told me that, that's the only thing I could think of, man, is like, is my mind went immediately to, just how difficult street photography is. And if anyone's listening to this, I will tell you, if you were to ever try something and you want to be a better photographer, or you feel swamped, or you want to try something, try street photography, and not rural photography, and not urban decay. Try street. That means in a street with people. It is the most frustrating and also the most amazing thing you can do. Just capturing regular ass people. And I like what you said about like, taking photos of people, like you could take photos of people who weren't here. I've got photos of my grandfather who passed about a couple years ago. My mother, who's battling stage 4 cancer right now, photos of her. I've got photos of, friends, cousins, things like that. And you don't expect these photos in the moment to have weight because you've taken a lot of them.
Right.
But there are photos that right now they will not have any meaning or weight in your life. But whether it's a photo that gets you recognized by a bigger entity, whether it's whether it's a photo of a loved one. My favorite photographer, and I was actually talking to my fiance about this on the way home, and I was showing her his photos. There is one person who, and I'm going to look up his account right now, who, if I was saying, because, and I've got a lot of respect for a lot of people and like things like that.
Oh yeah.
The guy that I think is, in my eyes at this moment right now, the most inspirational and probably the best photographer, naturally gifted, that I have ever seen is a man, CYRIAC7 on Instagram, Cyriac7. He has an XC3 and a 35 1.4. He just takes photos of his family and his kid. And when I tell you that through every single image and every time he comes up, I smile, I'm in wonder because he does street and it's all focused around his family, no matter what it is. It is the most beautiful thing. And I remember telling him one time, like, these images, they're going to mean a lot because your kid can look back and see how much you loved them. And that's the thing, is to you, they may not have weight. You just care about the situation. You care about the person, and you want to get a good photo, or you want to test out a lens, or you just like taking photos and you want to shoot and have something to share on Instagram. But there's a point where the weight of that is not only felt by you, but by others and everyone. And so, and that's the thing, is you don't have to be professional. I've talked to him many a time. He is 100% a hobbyist. He has one camera, one lens. That's it. He doesn't need anything else, but it goes beyond the composition and stuff. It's not that he looks for composition, not that he looks for natural framing. It's not that he looks for weight in an image. He just looks at the way that he wants his son and his wife to be captured, because this is the way that I see them in my eyes. And it's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it goes to show you, you can know nothing about photography and not be passionate about photography and still be a great photographer, as long as you have love for the subject that you're taking. And that's one thing that a lot of people have. They don't think about that anymore. You have to know everything about specs. You have to have a certain camera. You either have to be top of the line specs in digital, or you have to shoot film, and anything in between is unprofessional.
Right.
And you have to know who this guy is, and know what this lighting is, or know what the name of this is, or know what this coating on a lens does.
Yeah.
Or you're not decent. And the thing is, a lot of people would be very disappointed if they were to talk with me in person about a lot of camera stuff, because I would literally tell them, well, shit, man, does it shoot? And a lot of people are so disappointed in DMs because they'll want to argue with me about this, and this, and all that. And I'll be like, hey, man, I don't know about that, but I could take the same images. And that's the thing, is people get really upset about, they want to. Photography is in a position right now with the rest of everything in the world, because of social media and because of marketing, because everything's in your face, is I want to be, if I have to sell my soul full send towards this brand or this idea, because this defines me and this is who I am, when everything should be fluid. Everything should be, I want to take things as they come, and I want to create as things come to me, because this can make me better, and because I want to do something that I love. And this guy, to me today, I was like, wow, this guy might be my favorite photographer. And it has nothing to do other than the fact that in every photo I see the story and I feel the love that he has for his family. And if photography is no longer telling a story, painting a picture and taking someone there, then someone just should remind, someone didn't let me know. But if it is still telling a story, this guy does it better than probably almost anyone that I know, as far as specifically what his tell the story of. So
You're gonna have to see his page, man. That sounds really interesting.
And
I'm a pretty easy crier. Things hit me easily. So yeah, send me his stuff. I want to see that for sure, man. And you're definitely touching on a unique aspect of it because, you know, kind of when you think about like TVs back in the early 2000s, I had like the fatback TV. Then we got like the flat screen, like in the 20 teens that were like $1,000, $2,000 initially. Now you can get a 4K QLED Samsung 60 inch for $500.
Right.
I mean, when it comes to how good a camera can be at photography, we're approaching the top, man.
Yeah.
Like our resolution's capped out. You can barely tell 6K from 8K, 6K from 4K.
Mm-hmm.
All these cameras focus quickly. Fuji can definitely do better. Just because I use it doesn't mean I don't have my gripes with it. Fuji can definitely bear with autofocus, but they're all really fast.
Yep.
So I think a lot of the approach that people are taking with photography now is due to just the stage that social media is in. I mean, when you think about it, I think I read that by 2028 or 2030, like 80 to 90% of all content online that's consumed will be video. Yeah. So that's why when you see like with the A7 IV being announced, they'll say, yeah, 33 megapixels off focuses quickly, but here's 35 different things that it can do with video. It's like, these are all just kind of video cameras that take pictures now. Yep. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And I think especially when it comes to photography, I mean, photo and video are kind of like cousins, if you ask me. So I think it's to your benefit to understand how to do both, because all you can do at that point is, if you're inclined, tell even stronger stories. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I guess the big thing about that with me too is I'm a person that believes if you have something your camera's capable, just figure out how to do it, because you know, you can have fun doing it. If you've never shot video in your life, try shooting video, man, because you know what, you may enjoy doing the same candid stuff you do with photos with video, and vice versa. But just like you just said, you know, these are all they're basically all overpriced cinema cameras, which is what they are, because they don't do everything a cinema camera can do in the same price range. We're with the A7 IV, it's going to be with maybe even the XH2, depending on what they do. I'm hoping they don't go the A7 IV route and give me 6 frames per second, or I will lose my mind. But you know, it just goes to, you're 100% correct that it's basically, you know, photography is now the afterthought, because if you want a full spec fast shooting frame per second camera, well, here it is over here. And but it also does 8K. And so it's kind of like everyone's pushing the video side, which is fine. Videographers, you know, but you deserve what you can get. But at the same time,
totally.
If videography is something you want to do full time, these cameras and the price you're paying aren't the cameras for you. But one thing I do worry about, and it's something I want your opinion on, and let me, I guess, explain my position at first.
For sure.
Is the XH2. I'm very curious about that, because I said they have in 2 bodies. I am needing that camera because it has the stack sensor, and because it'll do so much better with rolling shutter electronic. I needed to have a fast, you know, frame burst. So I would love to see it around 20 frames per second. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe it only has 10 or 15 again, and maybe it's a whole bunch of video that's all that matters. Do you see, because again, this is something that I was thinking about while I was laying in bed yesterday.
Talking to myself, the things that I was thinking about that before while laying in bed. Yeah,
dude, I'm telling you, man, 12 a.m. I was literally thinking about this. I understand the love of Leica. I do. I think the body's overpriced for what they do. And if that was a $3,000 M10 instead of an $8,000, I would completely never say shit about it. But are we going to get to the point to where people that are just focused on photography, when new cameras come out, start just reverting back, kind of in a Leica sense, to either film or older digital photography cameras, to where people are really going to say, you know what, Nikon's DSLR series was fantastic, or Fujifilm's earlier series was great. And I mean, is there a point to where everyone says, fuck it, when we want to take photos, I'm going to buy this camera because it does just what I need to do, instead of the only way cameras can improve at this point with focus, which is what everyone cares about, is if the camera takes the photo for you. That's an honest thing.
Pretty much.
And so
pretty much. Yeah. So I would like to think that's going to happen. And the reason why is because when I consider around the time that I was first starting, I think the A7 III had recently come out because that was my first camera. So I think when you're talking entry level bodies, I think Canon was on like the T7i, T8i, or something like that. It was like $600 or $700 with a kit lens. We're at the point now where you can find XT3s for $800.
Yep.
The XH1, which I will fight anybody over that camera. People were wrong. People are wrong.
They're wrong about
for hating on the XH1. Yep. That thing was $2,000 when it came out. You can find it now if you're patient for 600 used.
Yep.
So when you look at it from the standpoint of we're kind of at that point where we are with TVs now, or even with phones, like even if the iPhone 13 just came out, the iPhone X is still better than almost any piece of technology that was ever released before it.
Exactly.
So when you consider these cameras, by the time the XH2 comes out, bro, if we see a $700 XT3, I will scream. Because that means a beginner can literally grab this thing and grow with it for years. You got the 10-bit. Truth be told, my subscribers know, I don't know what half these specs mean. I'm a street photographer, you know? Man. But when it comes to the allowances and the potential that these people will have to grow in these cheaper cameras, it is to your benefit to say, look, the XH2, people like you and I mean, we're going to be all over that thing if it delivers the way it's supposed to. Those larger files, I'm looking forward to starting to print soon. Yep. We're going to have a use for it. But to your average photographer, dude, I bet how cheap the XT30 is going to be next year. Like, come on, man. Exactly. XT20, like, think about it, dude. So I would like to think that people will hop on that, because if we're just talking a bang for buck standpoint, you'd be remiss not to.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And that's, man, I'm glad you touched on that. We've talked about this before. You mentioned it in your video too. It's better to buy an older flagship than a new entry level. And that's one thing you talked about.
Got that from you.
Yeah. You talk about the T7i. A lot of people, they don't know this because this information isn't out there, and a lot of people have the issue of they hear one thing and they believe it and they'll never look it up themselves. The same way, anyway, I was going to make a vaccine joke, but basically, man, like
you try to get demonetized.
I'm not trying to get demonetized, man. Nikon and Canon notoriously bricked their APS-C sensors on purpose. They notoriously, for DSLRs, put in cheaper sensors, cheaper build, limited the ISO capabilities, limited the recording capabilities, the same way that they purposely limit their own mirrorless cameras, the R, the RP, when it came to recording functions, the R5. It was heavily reported, hey, you know what? This camera doesn't need to overheat. It has cooling capabilities, but it's intentionally like, this isn't turned off and it doesn't regulate this whole thing. And so a lot of people don't understand that for them to sell cameras when digital became a big thing, and the pricier ones, they had to say, this is professional and this isn't. So that the hobbyist would say, I want to be professional. I'm going to buy what professionals have. The hobbyist would say that, when professionals really didn't give a shit. They're trying to look at glass and things like that. And we can go, we could jump into a long ass conversation about this, but back to what I was saying. So with that in mind, when it comes to Fujifilm or even the Canon EOS R or even the RP, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the EOS R, I'll use it for example, and the RP weren't the top of the line cameras.
Right.
It'll be better than any APS-C RF mount camera that comes from Canon, because Canon is notorious for bricking their APS-C cameras. So with that in mind, with Fujifilm is one of the few companies, because they're focused on APS-C, so they can do this, that, and medium format. They try to give everything they can and squeeze everything into every single camera. The XE4 that I'm using right now for this, that I've been taking all my photos on, is the exact same sensor and the exact same readout and output as the XT4. And so there's no image quality delineation. So when Fujifilm's like, hey, let us send you next XT4, I said, no, I don't need it. Send me an XE4, because if I do a side by side with 33 and 35, people are going to say, well, the XT4 is better. That's why the images look better. No, bitch, they're the exact same sensor. And so the thing is, when you're looking at an XT2, an XH1, an XT3, even an XT1 from Fujifilm, or an X Pro 2, an X Pro 1, the build, the capabilities, everything, even the sensor reading from those old flagship cameras are still going to feel a lot better than this XE4 than the XE3. You know, it's crazy how beginners will think, okay, I have to have the best and the brand new or to be a good photographer. So let me go ahead and buy this $900 XE4 that I can complain about later, when I could spend $900 on a flagship that's what, 3 years old, that has updates to have the exact same, it has the exact same sensor. It's the exact same sensor.
Right.
But it just focuses a little, a hair slower. And it's just amazing how the consumers don't think about this, don't know about it. And we're so driven in a world of, oh, you want to be the best and you want to be like this, you want to be like this person, right? Well, you can only do it with this, when that's not the case. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think on one hand, because I know that we've, you know, I think I've watched a couple of your videos where you've talked on just the importance of gear. You know, I definitely think that there's like a 9-to-1 ratio of people who would say that gear doesn't matter. And I'm definitely in the one. I think it absolutely does.
Yeah.
I think gear is directly how you articulate your language. Like if I want to communicate closeness in the street, I'm probably going to use a 28 or a 35. If I want to communicate almost more of like a painterly, hey, look at this sort of thing, I'll probably use like the 50 f2 or 50 millimeter focal length or an 85. So in that aspect, it does matter 100%. But then when you think too, I would hope that this sort of mindset that a lot of the film photographers have taken of, hey, this camera is 35 years old, but it was really cool when it came out, so I'll use it. I hope people will think the same with digital. Hey, this is only 4 years old. If the film photographers use something that came out before my mom was born, I should be able to use an XT2 still.
It is so bad, dude. Honestly, it's and I blame the iPhone for it. We've talked about this. Canon is the Apple of the camera world, but I blame the iPhone for it, man, because you know, before then people had their phones all the time, but you know, this is a status symbol. It really is.
It is.
And unfortunately, to a lot of photographers who don't, I don't want to say know any better, because I think people know a camera is a status symbol. Someone will upgrade to the A7 IV, even though it's hardly better than the A7 III, and they'll take a loss selling their A7 III for $1,200. We've seen them for $1,200, $1,100 for sale, and spend $2,600, to get an A7 IV. This is the best time to live.
Right. Yeah, guys, not to cut you off, but just because we shoot Fuji on our channel does not mean that we will not shout out other cameras. No. You can get an A7 III for like $1,300 now. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like, hop on it for real. It's crazy what's going on.
Sony is the best ecosystem to be on, period. If you're just all about the specs and performance, period, and I just want the camera to work and do everything for me, Sony hands down has the glass, it has everything for it. You're paying a price for it, but you know, that is what it is. But you can get some used shit for cheap now. Because everyone's flocking selling it. On the other hand, though, you're still paying a price even if it's used, because you're buying that glass. They're used 70-200. They're Mark I, which everyone kept raving about, like, oh, it's a little bit faster. It'll do better with AF and video. And it said something. Someone said something about, oh, it's a little bit sharper in the corners. Again, mind you, I don't understand why people need sharpness in the corners at 2.8 when they're shooting portraits. Everyone who I saw use it for portraits. One person used it for landscape, but you're still gonna be paying $2,000 for that Mark I. So that is crazy. But yeah, right now is a great time to be alive, because you can get an EOS R, which is the exact same camera as the A7 IV. And if anyone wants to bury me for that, it is what it is. They have the exact same specs in real life application. You can get EOS R right now for about $1,200. $1,250 was what I saw yesterday on Facebook Marketplace with the EF to RF adapter. It's just a great time to be alive and be a photographer, or be a beginning photographer, because you can get into something nice. But the thing is, you know, who's beginning photographer going to listen to? Someone with 800 or 1,000 subscribers, or are they going to listen to 225,000, 1 million, however many subscribers who tell them, oh, if you want to take photography serious, you have to buy this camera? And it just sucks, man.
Yeah, I mean, at first thought it does suck, but then I'll look through my comments, and I'm in your comment section. I'm always watching your videos. Dude, we have some very like intelligent,
yeah, we do.
Very, very thoughtful people.
Yep.
So, I mean, the fact that you would even subscribe to someone that has a small following as we do already says something about who you are. Yeah. But we got some savvy people in our sections, man. Yeah. So I definitely think that as time goes on, people are almost having to become more savvy, because the average buying in price for something new is getting higher.
It's high, man.
Now, if we're adjusting for inflation and stuff, I don't know how much like the Nikon F3 or whatever Gordon Parks used costed when it came out. But when you think about it, you're putting a lot into just getting started. Like just starting a YouTube channel, for example. Yeah. I don't even want to think about how much money all this stuff around me probably costed just to be able to talk to you right here.
Yeah.
You know? So when you put it that way, yes, it is a little bit worrisome. But I think when you're into the corners of YouTube, like we are, maybe even corners of Instagram, we're getting some really good people coming through. And I honestly, man, like initially YouTube was never even a thought for me. Like I really just wanted to do street photography, meet people. I don't plan on having kids, die one day and just leave a bunch of photos behind. Yeah. But now it's gotten to the point where literally there's people all around the world, different countries, et cetera, that I'm getting to have these long conversations with, you know, just for this thing that we both love. So it's truly amazing how many different things other than just sharp pictures these cameras and lenses can bring us, man.
Tell you, man. All right, man, hit me with another question, man. What else you got?
Okay, man, you know I like to hop a little bit deeper into things.
Yeah, I know you got some. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, man, because like I told you, I've been at these different museums and everything, and I've observed. So the way that the art museum is laid out, at least in Cleveland, I'm sure all museums are like this, is that they take you through each era. So on the first floor, as soon as you walk through the front door, you're going to be in the like Greek, Roman, kind of like BC eras. And then when you go to the top, you'll move through Baroque to Romanticism to Surrealism. You're moving through movements. It's taking you through time up to present day. Yeah. And it's interesting because when you get to the contemporary section, there's a pretty hard cutoff of like around the time where Picasso was no longer with us. So I think like the 60s or 70s. So I've been thinking about this really heavily, and like I still don't have an answer. Social media is making it a little bit difficult, and just changing attitudes on art as a whole are making things difficult. Mm-hmm. Because when we look at Hop, for example, I mean, this is premier realism. I mean, this, like you said earlier, this is a slice of life at a diner on a quiet night. Maybe it just got done raining. Maybe it's about to start raining. Who knows? But it forces you to ask a question and really dive into what did Hop think about art and how did he put that onto a canvas? And when I think now, especially as I look at street photography, even street photography is changing a little bit. Yeah. Some people do this very well, like the homie Sir, S-E-R-R, the guy that you showed me.
Shout out, Sir.
Yeah,
up,
seeing his stuff kind of made me think about this. When I look at the street photography,
bless you, babe.
What a sweetheart. When I think about the photography that's thriving the most right now, whether it be like a Joshua Jackson, a Manaris, a Sir, S-E-R, I hope I'm not saying his name wrong. Everything is very cinematic. And me, a classic overthinker, it kind of makes me go back to that statistic I was telling you. It's like, okay, so they're projecting in the next 10 years that video will be the primary form of content that we consume. And even all of this street photography that does the best amongst the people is very cinematic looking. They all look like film stills. Yep. So when you think about how different eras in time have had classified movement names, if you had to guess what the primary attitudes of art today are, do any words come to mind?
Man, so the cinematic comes to mind, mostly not even because everything is cinematic, but because current day cinematic. Current day cinematic is very digital. It's very clean. It's very there's intention used with certain lenses, things, coatings to eliminate flare, eliminate diffraction, eliminate ghosting in images. I mean, there's like a lot of stuff that goes into it. For all the videographers, cinematographers out there, you'll completely understand when it comes to colors and lights, and especially mixtures of color temperatures. A lot goes into it, and you have to really know what you're doing to get the image. So with that, the digital age has brought a whole bunch of fail safes for people to get a correct image. What I've noticed is it's not so much cinematic as right now, but people are going for a look of a cinematic of what it used to be. And that is the film cinematic. So whether it's with Sir, whether it's Jason from Grainy Days, whether even people just like with the whole love of film and the researchers of that, which film will never die because it'll always be something that people enjoy to do. It's people who weren't alive for it to be nostalgic, but it's just the I guess the desire for the feeling within it. And so I would say that it's not just cinematic to describe it. It would be I guess retro cinematic, because everything you're seeing, everyone has an 8mm film. Everyone's using diffusion filters, which again trips me out because I've been using Tiffen. I've been using Black Pro Mist and Glimmer Glass for maybe like 6-7 years now, and using it specifically for video. And now that's being used for photo, when that was a video thing, to replicate some of the ugly things that we've worked towards in videography getting rid of. And so I would say it would be nostalgic or a retro cinematic is what I would describe everything as. And even more than that, it would be isolation is a big thing that I see in a lot of photography and videography. Me, someone who's really big into self-portraits, even though I don't share them, I do take self-portraits, but past self-portraits, isolation within subjects, isolation within whether it's even street. A lot of times now, everyone's focusing on the person walking perfect through the shadows, the one person, the lead lines of taking things to one person, the frame and weighting of a photo to one person. Things have gone more to isolation, which is in social media age, it's me, isolating because I'm here on a platform by myself. If you look back in the 90s, and if you look back at people that we grew up liking, duos and groups were a huge part of shooting in kind of event photography-esque. I mean, you look about it and it's not so much isolating, but now, and part of that I feel like is the push from YouTubers who aren't actual photographers and videographers, YouTubers who don't shoot it every day or have never shot professional or whatever. Their obsession with fast lenses has led to isolation being the new norm as far as in art.
Now, here's the thing, though. I agree with you. Isolation is very popular thematically. And truth be told, I need to give credit to Manaris, because Manaris has about 300,000 kids out here. Everybody is shooting like her now. She's just that good. She's that good at what she does. If she ever sees this somehow, hi, Manaris.
Hi, boo.
Now, like you said, the abilities of these lenses are leading to that as well. But then also at the same time, this is also, I think, the loneliest generation America's ever seen.
Loneliest shit.
I mean, you can look at the statistics. It is insane. And it's not just because of last year. This has been going on pretty much since the advent of social media.
You don't need friends.
I know
you have online friends.
Exactly. And I know we touched on this lightly last time, how, the zeitgeist is always at play.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just had to answer black or white, yes or no, I mean, does art represent the time that you're in? Yes or no, if you had to pick one.
Does art, yeah.
So if we're going to go with that hard yes, and we're looking at how this is the most depressed and lonely era that there's ever been, or generation that there's ever been, we have all these wide open lenses that can resolve it. And we have a growing shift towards a video-based cinematic world. I mean, I think it's going to represent itself, especially in street photography. So even when you look back to, like you said, to the 90s, 80s, 70s, you have people like Jamel Shabazz. Every single photo of his is hip, it's colorful. There's a bunch of people. Dude, Jamel Shabazz, super cold.
That's your homie?
I love,
that's your homie,
man. I would love for him to be. He's commenting on a couple of pictures. Jamel Shabazz is super cold. But even when you look at his stuff, I mean, there's just a vibrancy to it that you don't really see anymore, which you would think, if that's the way that things were to be represented, we have even better ways to replicate and create covers now. So if everything was just based on how real can we make life look, it'd look way different. But it seems like it directly is reflecting the driving changes of our generation.
One thing I will say about that is I don't even think this is the most depressed and isolated generation has ever been. This is the most allowed a generation has been to discuss that thing within itself. And so I think that I think that Gen X, a lot of our parents, not baby boomers who fucked everything up, but Gen X so there's a meme that goes around and it's like I'm really upset to have been born at the end of the fuck around generation, and now I have to live with the find out generation. That's basically Gen X, dude, because whether it's housing and things like that, the breakdown, you also had baby boomer parents who were super horrible. You had the fact that in the 1980s, credit scores were put into place. And so people who saw their parents live completely in wealth as soon as they became adults, they're the first one that felt the hardships of it. Not even to mention, like how that does for different communities, and not even communities of color. It's just of wealth, like for people below the poverty line, because people could talk about, oh, it's just minorities, which I understand we're at a disadvantage in a lot of areas, but majority of people in poverty are white. So like even whenever it comes to that ecosystem, to that part of it, there's a lot of hardship in poverty. There's a lot of hardship in loss, and there's a lot of hardship in feeling like you're stuck in the rat race and the hamster wheel of what we have in America right now, or all across the world. And so, but I feel like the difference is that generation was expected to shut up and just get over it. And this generation, our generation, even has found different outlets and different avenues. And so with art,
it's very true,
being an expression of the people and where they're at. And again, it doesn't always have to say where you're at. Like art isn't expressive of your generation, because of the shit that he painted. How many times we talked about how people shit on him and thought he was weird for the way that he painted everything. You know what I'm saying? It took a
little bit of time.
Yeah. It's just that this is the most accepting a generation's ever been up to this point with this type of art, and because people are associating with it. And I'm not against the kind of art, but I do notice that even a lot of the shit that I shoot, it is a lot of isolated stuff. It is a lot of, hey, here's this one image, and again, it was kind of forced upon people when you look at stuff. There was a lot of buddy films, like how like in all kinds of art, it was about group, it was about family, it was about this dynamic. And now we are alone in a lot of senses, and people are just reflecting that. And so I see what you're saying, and I double down by saying at least we're allowed to. That's why.
And you brought up an interesting point, man, because there are plenty of things that I'm sure both of our parents' generations faced that they just won't ever talk about, because that's how they were raised. And they definitely weren't able to talk about back then, because a lot of these things didn't even exist like 20 years ago. I was listening to Andre 3000's podcast with Rick Rubin, and he was saying, like, nobody even, like, anxiety wasn't a thing in the 90s.
It wasn't.
He was like, you just didn't go on stage. Like, no one knew what these terms are, like, especially in the hood. So, now He's like, there's anxiety. That he's like, I didn't know what any of that was. I just couldn't figure out why I was afraid to go on stage. So you definitely introduced an interesting point to it there. But sort of the follow-up to that question is that's where it is right now. How long do you think it'll stay that way? And what do you think the response is? Because typically when it comes to these different movements in art, you have the people who have the thing that's popping right now. So for example, you'll have the impressionists who didn't really like what the realists are doing. So they started to paint things with how they made them feel. That's how you got impressionism, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at the era of like Curry, where even though he was doing photojournalism for Nat Geo overseas, he was basically just doing street photography. Like, let's be honest, you know. Yeah. When you have somebody like a Jamel Shabazz who was doing street portraits of a much more vibrant New York City, it looked like, at the end of the day, that street photography representing his time. So we have to get out of this hole eventually. I mean, do you think that photography, some people worry that the power of the photo is diminishing. Some people worry that everything is becoming too homogenized. As far as just the direction that photography is going in the mainstream sense, how do you feel about it and where do you think it's going?
I feel good with it. I feel like when it comes to like how long will it be like this, I don't think there's like a time limit per se on how long things will be like this, because this isn't this is just what's most overwhelming and what's most flooded with us. I mean, if I was to follow 10 random street photographer pages, 8 of them aren't going to have a single person, and they're going to be mostly houses and cars. And so so I think that the mass doesn't speak for the many. I think the mass just speaks for those that are represented online and have a voice. Because we've talked about it before, the best photographer, and at least in my opinion, now your opinion may be different, when it comes to actually like not just someone I'm in love with, but the GOAT of our generation is probably going to be Andre Wagner. And,
no question.
And 100% Andre Wagner is going to be the GOAT of our generation. Him,
no question.
There's Stock Easy, and I mean, I've talked about Ho and like a whole bunch of people, but yeah. I guess it's who is recognized at the end of this, because there may be a wave of we talk about let's take impressionism and realism and stuff like that. Is it really, did that really define everyone, or was that defined by those that everyone saw as the greatest and the forefront of creativity at that time? And so I think it just depends on who gets their flowers at the end of this. I feel like people still don't recognize Andre Wagner and Stock Easy, and even a guy who's on YouTube, and he totally just slipped my mind. The bearded dude.
He's a street photographer.
Yeah, or he does a lot of rural decay. He's the medium format dude. Shoots film. Oh my gosh, man! It's because it said oh my gosh, I feel so horrible.
I probably know who it is.
Yeah, I'm going to think of his name, but he does a whole bunch of film stuff. But like even him, I think he's one of the best that he does. There's a whole bunch of people that I feel like, who knows how this generation is going to be revered or remembered, or this generation of photography more in line, just because, you know, it's kind of not up to this generation on what's remembered. It's literally going to be up to what people who publish and what people who pass down and speak about are going to really talk about. And you got to remember, a lot of these people, their whole life and their whole photography story and journey is on Instagram. And once that is no longer a photo app, what are people going to do? What's going to be the next big thing that people are going to have to jump on early in order to be a big, heavy creator? And at that time, will the Willem Verbeiks, will the Volundis, will the Linus and his camera, will the Film.West, who I think, if you don't know who Film.West is, follow him. He's fantastic. But at what point will these guys regress or go further, and who will take their place? Because social media is so finicky.
That's an interesting question. And I think we're in the generation where that's largely changing, because when you think about it, for example, with William Eggleston, I believe he was the first person that ever had a color photography exhibition at the New York, like MoMA, whichever one they have there. let's say that he doesn't get that exhibition. Do we even know who he is?
Exactly.
So the question that I'm posing with that isn't a question of his skill set, because William Eggleston was beyond skilled, but it's more so the necessity that the museum and that the agencies and tastemakers had. Pretty much up until, dude, the last like 10 years, if you were a photographer who wasn't getting into galleries, you were just another person with a camera.
Exactly, yeah.
So where fields like Instagram much more helped back in the day than now, but especially with YouTube, with people like Volandis, who was also, or Volandis, I don't know how to say his name, but he's extremely skilled at what he does. Extremely skilled. He doesn't need a museum. He can just go straight through YouTube and find 100,000, 200,000. I mean, people he has 300,000 people and just touch their hearts immediately. He doesn't need to give the museum half to be able to get this into people's faces. So even when social media does go away, I think it largely does depend on how much the creator actually cares about not just their audience, but the craft as a whole, to see how long they'll last. Because even Sean Tucker, for example, I believe he just put out a book. Sean Tucker, he talks much more about just the philosophy of photography, the actual how to use a camera.
Exactly.
But he's going to be remembered. Not because of any galleries he might have had, but because he touches people very deeply through what he does. So I'm kind of forgetting what the original question was, honestly. But
I mean, I think that's basically along the line.
I think as far as just that question of what you were saying with the mainstream photographer, where it's going and how it's going to be, we've gotten to a point with not just photography, but also music, where you don't need the label anymore. You don't need the museum. You don't need an agency. You don't need the connect in the weird jacket who's standing.
No more having to suck up and pretend like Marshall Mathers is a decent artist. I love it.
Where did that come from?
Damn.
But even at the same time, like, oh man, dude, okay. I'm not gonna Marshall Mathers LP. I'm not gonna let you.
It's okay. Marshall Mathers LP is okay, but I'm just saying he's got nothing on Jack. It's whatever, man. Anyway, go on.
Hey, man,
bars, bro, bars.
So, like, even example, like I live in Cleveland, you know, as my subs and and in Cleveland's art scene is not what it could be. And I don't mean that from the sense of there aren't skilled people, because there's very skilled people, but just as far as an institution standpoint, there's a lot that's left to be desired. So originally, when I was first getting into actually wanting to become a street photographer that touches people's lives, I was concerned about going through our local print rooms, our museums, the people who are connected with the people who will get you in front of the other people's faces. But then I started getting on YouTube, and I'm not making prints yet. I don't even want to print for the intent to sell first and foremost. I'll sell prints, but I just want my work to exist like Hop does right here. But YouTube made me realize that if I just take my own work myself and put it in people's faces, whoever loves it, we're going to connect with each other. I don't need the museum to do that. So photography is in a weird place, because you can type in street photography on Instagram, you'll get 98 million results. But then also at the same time, if you cut through and you really are passionate about it, you get in people's faces, you don't need the third party or the middleman anymore. So there's unique curses, but there's overwhelming gifts too.
No, I agree. That's one thing that I think about is I think there's talented people everywhere, and it's just a matter of how many people see them. Like I said, that Syriac 7 guy, I shared with you his account. He is a better photographer than me, like when it comes to composition and weight. I mean, honestly, his photos have so much life to them. I mean, like I look at his stuff and I'm learning from the way that he's composing stuff. And so, you know, he is a more talented, naturally, photographer than me. But because of a small platform I have, that seems like there's no way. You know, I get paid sometimes to do this, you know, so that can't be true. There are so many talented, gifted people out there similar to you, who they don't need a paycheck to basically define or to speak on how valuable they are to the avenue of the of photography and the art.
I'm gonna kill this thing. Oh,
Bro,
I said the K word. You gotta block that out. I want to get demonetized. Man, I'm never buying fruit again. But keep going. Yeah.
no, that's basically it, man. I just think like you know, it's unfortunate because there will be some people who don't get seen. Matthias Berling is one of the people, you know, and Stock Easy is another person. Now, Stock Easy has a nice Instagram following, but you know, it's just like there are a lot of people who are super duper talented who, you know, they just may never be seen in the light they should be seen. But again, that's what it comes back to with your original question, what I was getting to. It's not that what is a generation going to be known for? It's what are the people that are pushed to the forefront going to be known for? Because honestly, with the way that it is right now, this generation would be, if it was in today, based off of popularity, be known for film photography. It would be known for the Willem Verbeeks. It'd be known for the Volandis. It'd be known for the Leicas of the world. It'd be known for Matt Day. And not even the people that we think are the best. It'd be known for the Matt Days and for the Volandis and the, you know, people shooting Leica. But the best Leica shooters, hands down, to me, is Stock Easy and Andre Wagner, and even McCurry. You know, but a lot of people, those three for sure, Stock Easy, Volandis, McCurry. But if you're talking to people in the generation of who they know, and no offense to these guys, it's Volandis, it's Willem Verbeek, it's, you know, all these people, it's you know, Benj Heish, you know, it's these guys that are there who are at the forefront. And so it's a crazy dynamic the way social media plays into it now. It used to be you could be a great photographer, great artist, and if you don't know someone to get into an expo, you're never going to be seen. And now everyone's making a book. I mean, literally everyone has a book, everyone has a zine, and that's great. But you know, what is it? It's just stuff in your, it's just, you know, I mean, does it tell a story, or is it just a compilation of the best photos you think you took? And so I feel like things back in the day had to have a purpose in order for people to pick them up, and now anyone can print, and so it's just a little bit different. So who's at the forefront? Who gets the most clout? It is what it is.
That's interesting. And even though you are seeing a lot of zines and books put out nowadays, I think that's sort of like a tap on the shoulder for what's going to be important. Even when you think about like the resurgence of vinyls, like just like how digital photography is infinitely more simple than film photography, why would you buy a vinyl when you can literally just go on Spotify and listen to the music? Why would you buy a vinyl player when you can buy it's Beats again, Pill or something?
With our generation, it's this need for nostalgia that was never ours. The same way I just talked about with the film part. Yeah.
I think that's part of it. But I think also another part of it as well is that with this digital world, dude, we want to feel something like tangible things.
Tangible, physical,
I don't think we're ever going to get away from that as humans. So even though a vinyl player like will never sound as good as a Bose speaker, having the tangible thing, reading through the album notes, seeing who produced it, who wrote it, that's important. Even though you can look at a Andre Wagner picture on your TV, probably much bigger than any of his prints will ever be. If you actually hold one of his books in your hands, it'll be way different.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why, even though you don't need the museum anymore to get in people's faces, it still has an important role.
It's an experience, yeah.
Same with the movie theater, because even though not necessarily the best people will be on the walls there, they're at least helping guide the unsavvy, if that's even a word, the less savvy eyes into things that might be important for a given time. Yeah. So you don't need it in order to have a following, grow a following, or even be somebody in your city or your country anymore. But they do serve a role that I think is not necessarily shrinking, just changing compared to what it was even 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Art has a funny way of us seeing something and not reminding us of a good memory in the past, but romanticizing the life that we live in this moment. And I think that's one thing, is being able to hold that in your hand. You're right. The tangibility of it is probably what draws people. So, I mean, art's crazy, man. Photography is crazy. Art's crazy. It's just the impact that it has on people. Who would have ever thought that a moment that someone didn't experience firsthand, or a film that's completely fictional, has such an effect on people to where emotionally they can feel something. You can bring you to tears, you can frustrate you, can scare you, you can make you excited, but you weren't there in the moment, but it means
Exactly.
again.
Dude, that's
yeah.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
No, I was going to say, you've already heard me say it. Photography was made for sports, and it's because everyone can feel a part of it. And so,
No, absolutely. I mean, it was made for sports. It was made to show different moments. It was made to tell stories of a given time. It was made to give a lens into what people were doing.
Yep.
It was made to, over time, show the progression of somebody's expertise. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. And at the end of the day, it's all storytelling. Like when the road is over,
exactly.
you know, the asteroid hits right now, knocks out the whole world. The first thing we're going to do is try to figure out how to communicate. Then we're going to try to figure out how to tell a story about something that we did the previous day.
Exactly.
So when everything is gone, it's just going to be art, storytelling. We'll probably figure out how to make some music out of, you know, hitting some sticks onto the ground. But that's why I love these certain people like Sean Tucker, for example, who are just helping artists get out there and just do it. Because, man, there are so many reasons why you shouldn't. I mean,
right.
You don't have the lens that you want. You don't have the editing gear. You don't have enough storage. You're nervous.
Right.
Your friends don't support you. Your parents think it's weird. Like, I've had so many people message me just grateful for images that I've taken because it showed them that they can do it. And I don't even see myself as that good, honestly. But when you consider the job that, well, not the job, but more so the role that artists have in just any functioning society, artists make every city pop before people move into it. They make every story worth seeing, and they make life worth getting up and living.
Exactly.
So when it comes to, you know, budding creators on your channel, budding photographers visiting mine, whoever it is, I'm just glad that we're getting out and doing it, man. Because without the artists, world will be a much more trash place than it already can be.
I agree, man. Well, that's about it. We're about to get kicked out of the lobby room. So, all right.
Seriously?
Man. Yeah. It looks like.
Oh man, that was fast.
About to say so. Yeah. We got a couple minutes, but yeah, man. That's the. Thanks for joining. That's pretty good. I'll be
absolutely.
We'll be sure to get this again. We'll get with Like Ali, and hopefully maybe we can jump in with some other. I'd really love for you to bring on Other Dorian. I'd really love for Other Dorian to be a
man. If I can get the Other Dorian in here, he is working overtime on these storyboards. For those who don't know, my best friend in this world, his name is also Dorian. He's also bald and black. He's also a photographer, but he's a storyboard artist. And there are so many parallels in storyboarding versus street photography that'll knock your socks off. It always does for me. So I'll try.
I would love to hear that because I have like so many ideas of talking with people from, you know, videography, storyboarding, different camera systems, shooting primarily film, even I want to talk to a couple models. I want to talk to people. Like I have connections now with semi and professional sports athletes and talk to them about doing stuff. Just talk to them about what's it like being on the other side of a camera. What's it like, you know, like what does, you know, and just so for sure, I would love to because we got to get Like Ali back, but for sure, I would also love to hear what Other Dorian has to say about all this. But all right, man.
Boys back together. Ed and Eddie.
Right, exactly. All right, D. I'll talk to you later, man. Appreciate your time.
Definitely, man. I'll see you, bro.
All right.